Hi, this is Grandin Gill from the University of South Florida, and this is my seventh and final segment in my series on the Doctor of Business Administration / Executive Doctorate programs. And in this sequence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the criteria you should probably use if you're thinking about joining one of these programs. At the moment, there aren't a huge number of them out there. There are probably 11 AACSB accredited programs that I know about that will be available in fall 2014. But nevertheless, there are enough so that you should really think a little bit if you have some choices within your area. Now, before I go into the criteria that should matter to you, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about some things that I don't think should matter very much and that you should be aware of. The first of them is the specific degree that the program awards. Some programs award DBAs, some award executive DBAs. At Case Western, they award a Doctor of Management. At Georgia State, they award an Executive Doctor of Business. The degree that is awarded means nothing. And here at the University of South Florida, where we'll be launching a program this year, we have chosen the DBA because it is a more conventional degree title. But ultimately, whatever your degree is, you're a doctor, and it doesn't really tell you anything about the quality of the program. So my suggestion is don't worry about it. Now, the next thing that I would encourage you not to worry too much about is the specific price tag. And that, of course, is within reason. Right now, the AACSB accredited programs range in price somewhere between $75,000 and $150,000, and the median is probably somewhere around $110,000 for the 3-year program. And these are big price tags, but you have to look at it another way. If you are expected to work 15 hours a week on the outside for 3 years, you're talking over 2,000 hours of work. So a difference of $20,000 in the total tuition of the program equates to about $10 an hour. In fact, if you look at the total cost of the program, you're probably talking about a lower per hour cost than you would pay, say, a talented plumber. So don't be overly concerned about the cost. If you can't afford the program, I recommend that you wait until you can. Don't go into debt for it because I don't know that you'll be able to calculate an ROI. But just recognize that the big cost of these programs is going to be the time it takes you to complete them and the time that you have to spend away from your family or away from your recreation in order to do all the work that's required. Now, another thing I wouldn't worry too much about is the specific brand name of the institution. And of course, the institutions with the most recognizable brand names would likely disagree with me on this. But the main reason that I would say it's critical to have a strong brand name behind you is if you're looking for a very competitive tenure track position. At the present time, I do not believe that any of these programs are going to lead to a tenure track position. So it is much more a matter of how it affects you locally. I think this is the third time that I have mentioned the fact within this series that if you are hired for a full-time faculty position out of one of these programs, it will either be at a teaching institution, which is likely to be somewhat less competitive than a research institution, or it's going to be on the basis of whatever experience you brought to the program. The titles that you have had, the job responsibilities that you have had, because those will matter to schools. But as long as the school is properly accredited, then I think that you should not worry about it. Which leads me to what you should worry about, and you should worry about how the school is accredited. The most widely respected accrediting agency in the U.S. is AACSB International. It accredits both U.S. schools and some international schools. And If you want to work even as an adjunct at an AACSB accredited school, it will be very helpful if your doctorate's from an AACSB accredited school. So that name matters in this particular context, whereas the specific school, I think, probably matters a little bit less, being realistic. Now, another thing that you should probably worry about is the specific flavor of the program. And here, I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's just a matter of what fits your needs. So the disciplinary program is going to tend to give you the opportunity to focus very narrowly on a particular discipline in your coursework, just the way you would in a PhD program. It will help qualify you to become a researcher and even publish in the research literature within that particular field. And so if that's the objective, you might look for a program like that. If you're looking for a program like that, you probably also ought to be considering regular PhDs as well as executive programs. Now, the multidisciplinary program essentially gives you a little bit of research in each area. And if you look at the structure of those programs, it looks a little bit like an MBA. I think in one of the segments I talked about the different flavors of these programs. And it will give you as broad a possible coverage of research, but it's going to be in sort of functional silos. So you're going to be learning about marketing issues in a marketing class, management issues in a management class, finance issues in a finance class, and so forth. If you really aren't sure what you want, then this may be a good way to go, because then whenever you do your dissertation, you are going to be able to specialize in a particular area. Now, the interdisciplinary programs basically deal with classes of a type that you might not find in a typical MBA program. You know, a class may be on systems, a class on creative thinking, a class on business analytics, you know, a class on global sustainability. These types of classes that don't necessarily fit that well into a particular department and involve lots of different issues, lots of different stakeholders. This type of program, and there are quite a few of them in the DBA category, is not going to make you that expert in the research literature of a particular discipline, but it may be one of the most beneficial in terms of your building the ability to think integratively about problems. Another thing you want to look about is the experience of the faculty, and this implies both research and teaching. Since doctoral degrees tend to be research focused under any circumstances, I think you want to make sure that your faculty have done some significant research in the area. But it's also important to have a little idea of what their teaching background is, because in these courses, you're going to be with them for 2 or 3 days every month or 6 weeks, the way these typical programs work. And between those periods, you're going to be in touch with them using distance learning technologies. You'll be interacting with them over Skype, over Blackboard or Canvas or whatever your learning management system is. And if your faculty do not have experience teaching that way because they're used to teaching regular courses, then it may be a little bit more challenging for you as the student. It's also nice to have faculty with some practical background because you're going to be able to identify with them a lot easier, because faculty will try to turn you into their own image. And if a faculty member is a pure researcher, then they may be trying to get you to look at problems in ways that might not make sense in a business context. Another very important thing is the structure of the cohort. And I think that the best programs tend to have cohorts that take you through the whole program, which may mean coursework in the final year of the program, just to keep the cohorts together. Remember that the cohort is what causes these programs to get 80 to 90% completion rates, which is practically unheard of in other doctoral programs. And as a consequence, I think that's very important. Also, remember that one of the benefits of these programs is going to be the networking you can do. So you want to make sure that the makeup of the cohort represents the type of people that you want to establish long-standing relationships with, because you're going to be with them for 3 years. You're going to get to know them very, very well. And that may mean, if you primarily deal in a local world, that you would want a cohort that consists mainly of local people. If you're operating in a highly global environment, you may want a cohort that comes from all over the place. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. There is what fits your needs. Of course, it's tough with all these new programs because you don't necessarily know what the cohort's going to look like. So what you want to do is you want to talk to the faculty in the program and get a sense of what they're trying to do. And that's going to be important in all these programs, because if your faculty are not approachable before you join the program, don't expect them to be approachable once you're in it. Finally, there is the makeup of the students and alumni networking. We talked a little bit about that before, but we also want to see what the program's ideas are about alumni. For example, in our University of South Florida program, we're actively committed to allowing our graduates to participate in the program after they graduate as advisors, and maybe even teaching some of the elective courses or co-teaching some of those courses. And the reason is that we perceive this program as being a way that we can bridge the gap between research and practice within our academic area. And in a very real sense, the individuals that we graduate are going to be the individuals uniquely suited to bridge that gap, which can be quite wide at most schools. And when you are looking at programs, it's important for you to understand what the expectations are for long-time relationships with alumni, because I believe that that could be one of the things that could be one of the most satisfying aspects of a program. And with that, I'm concluding this series on the Doctor of Business Administration, and I hope that you have found it useful. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to email me at Grandon, Grandon, @usf.edu. Thank you.